Thank you for joining me today. Welcome to Sean's Thoughts. Under another bridge, looking at some more graffiti. Actually, this one is far beyond graffiti. I feel as if these were specifically permission to be painted here, perhaps. They are pretty interesting to be art underneath a bridge, and yet there's a lot of graffiti over top of it, showcasing once again the trauma that many people feel at this moment. So, welcome. Thank you for joining me today in this beautiful, beautiful day. I think I'm going to start off by talking about how amazing the day is. I just want to kind of show you. See, there was a mural and perhaps even another mural over there, but yet there's so much pain that has been tagged everywhere. This is, of course, the beautiful part. Another beautiful river seen from underneath the bridge. So thank you so much for sharing your time and attention with me. Today, I kind of wanted to, discuss a little more about changes that have happened in my podcast and my podcast universe. Because, as I've mentioned before, I'm always looking to see what I could do perhaps to jetpack myself and my podcasts to a wider audience. And sometimes I feel that, there are a lot of different people that are perhaps listening to my podcast. Actually, I'm going to switch it over this way. I think that way is nicer. You're not necessarily seeing a little bit of the crack through what's underneath the bridge. So anyways, this podcast today I've labeled Where I'm At and Where I'm Headed To. And where I'm headed to, I've often talked about. I often believe that not often believe, but I often talk about my belief in that our world is fundamentally changing for the better. And I recorded a podcast episode last night, and I hope you'll have the time to go back and listen to it. And it's part of my afterthoughts, or I keep calling afterthoughts, but it's part of my after hours Sean's Thoughts podcast. And this is more of a bonus podcast, I would say. Nonetheless, it's where I picture that I've pieced together. It's actually calling piecing it together, something along the lines of that. You'll find it sometime in the last couple days. It's done as a video as I was sitting beside a campfire recording. And it basically pieces together where I believe that we are. And not necessarily where I believe we are, but where I've come to believe we are means I'm always open to discovering more truth of what the reality is. And yet I have been on a journey for the last several years to piece together the truth of our true reality. Because one of the things that I can say easily that I do believe is that the reality that we live within this matrix, perhaps, this simulation, the life that we live, there just seems to be, or appears to be, or my experience has been so many anomalies that it's challenging to believe that we are in base reality. Even the being known as Elon Musk had said the odds of us being in base reality, meaning that we are in some sort of simulation or matrix or computer simulated reality, are pretty high. And I mean, like, he essentially believed that, it's almost unlikely that we are in base reality. And therefore, that leads us to the opening that there is a larger reality beyond that which we can perceive. And so my whole journey has been to essentially search and seek the truth of what the reality is. And, many other people that I've run into often say to me that they're just happy or content with the world that they're living in. And they've just essentially learned how to cope and how to essentially accept the hardships, the challenges, the overabundance of lack. And, oftentimes you'll find that our people are calling it, well, it's a lack mentality. But yes, it's a lack mentality because there has been so many hardships put upon people, people that I know, people that I don't know, you know, people that are real, perhaps even people that aren't real. But my point being is the world is a lot more challenging than it should be. And I say that because I look at the world around me and I see so many possibilities for instantly making the world better for everyone, not just the rich people, not just the well educated people, not just the people that are in massive debt from mortgages and, car loans and credit cards and everything other that they're trying to pay off while they're trying to save money for retirement, which, may not even be there. Well, won't be there perhaps. You know, I believe that so many things in our world we could do so much better. And not as if, my ideas are better than anyone else, but yet if there's something in the world that isn't working, and there's so many things right now that aren't working, you don't even have to step outside your home to see how many things aren't working. Like even the household cleaners that we use that smell like all of these harsh chemicals that are suddenly made sweet by, Febreze and other crap like that, those aren't working. Yeah, they might get rid of the bad smell, but they're essentially masking it with other smells. And then you have to ask yourself, well, what are they masking? And that's just a small example of what's within our home that isn't necessarily working. But yet in the world at large, there's so many other things that aren't working as well. Even where we have placed our towns and our cities, often floods come by, and it truly exemplifies that how we've placed our world also isn't working because it's not necessarily in alignment with nature. And we are within nature, we are part of nature. And so when we push nature aside and we push animals up into the mountains and they're no longer allowed to live in the valleys, then we're not living in harmony with nature. So where I want to go with my reality, and I'm not necessarily meaning it's a reality for everyone who wants to or has to or anything like that, but for my own personal reality, I wish to live in harmony with nature, to live in a community that is 50% trees and streams and lakes and parks, and not parks as in manicured parks like Stanley Park where everything has to be perfectly, dressed up and the grass has to be cut and all the trees have to have all the little twigs that grow and the branches that grow off the tree branches to be all taken down and, a manicured thing like that. I mean, parks as in just large valleys and areas of grasslands and whatever naturally grows in that area. I wish to hope to see an apartment building, for example, if people wish to live in a community of an apartment, but build an apartment in the middle of the forest. And so that everyone there has the equal opportunity to get that amazing view rather than having one side, get the water view or the river view, and then the other side get to see all the honking horns of the cars and crap. See, our world could be considerably better if we weren't always concerned with how much money does it get, how much money does it bring in, how much money does it cost. Part of the world that we're stuck within right now is this whole debt slavery system that we're in. And, if we talk about where I am right now, I'm essentially breaking free of that debt slavery system. And I'm not necessarily broken free because there's still financial bindings that are placed upon them all. Yet there's still a requirement to at least exist in this world that I am right now to have a financial access or income of currency, a stream of currency essentially. And that's one of the challenges that I have been experiencing with this whole experience, especially over the last 2 months. See, synchronicity has always brought me what I needed when I needed it. And so over the last, I guess we'll say now 3 months, my ability to pay my rent in my apartment ended because synchronicity no longer aligned where, that odd job or that person that wanted to help out or anything like that would even come into my reality. So eventually, my landlord had told me at my apartment, which I was renting, because, buying is outrightly crazy in this world. But more importantly, even the Canadian job market is gone. At least that's from my own experience, my inability actually to get a so-called job. When I first found myself in the midst of a separation from my former partner, I put out maybe 50 to 100 resumes. Or, anyways, I put out a lot and I posted them on the Indeed website and I did other things to look for a job. I put the word out that I was looking, but only one person bothered even responding to an interview. And that interview was only for a job, which was a contractual job, which means if I didn't get paid anything. So it wasn't actually employment, it was more so contracting job. And it was in an industry of selling cars, which of course I would have probably excelled in it, except for that particular job wasn't looking for an employee. They were looking for someone to come in and shake up their existing employees. And this was a dealership that, like I said, they weren't actually hiring me as to hire me. They were just, if I sold a car, I got a commission. If I don't, I didn't get anything. And so that didn't necessarily appeal. The other jobs that I applied to, I didn't even get essentially, well, a callback or not a callback, but a declining my resume or anything like that. And I realized very quickly that every time job posting went up, there were thousands of people that were applying for that because now we lived in a digital age where people didn't even need to properly read the ads for the jobs that they were looking for, like the job postings, because people were just spamming out their resume. But yet with my resume, I included cover letters that truly exemplified why this particular job was interest to me and what I could bring to it. But after several hours of doing that and with no, even recognition or acknowledgement that I was looking into it, I started to see that trying to find a job, at least for me in the digital world, was pointless. And so I recognized that perhaps I was being guided to a different direction. And I did go different directions, left, right, and in between. Eventually, my grandmother's inheritance money, which was a little bit of money, came to me. And I was able to utilize that to look after my son and I as we continued. And we essentially splurged on a trip across Canada. And see, during that whole entire trip across Canada, I had learned many things about being sovereign and independent and always, growing and learning. And anyways, where I am right now is, as I mentioned 3 months ago, that money and any opportunity to create income dried up. And so, I guess 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was forced to leave my home. And since then, I've been journeying around British Columbia camping, which was ideal because I love nature. I love being out here. And it was also an amazing way to take my podcast on the road as I had always planned and always talked about. And yet I'm confused in a way because I look at the world around me and I look even on YouTube of how much garbage is on YouTube right now. I mean, people talking about nothing and laughing and swearing at each other and, talking about all of the crap that's happening in the world. And yet I'm out here sharing the stuff that I'm experiencing, the beautiful scenery, the campfires. Even before that, I was sharing a lot of thoughts about, how we could make our world better, how we could have a better life as all of us together. And yet the amount of support is amazingly low. And I'm not certain as to truly why that is. I make up stories for myself as I've always been empathetic to other people's situations. And I give everyone a reason or excuse of why things have happened. But yet when I look at the world around me, I see thousands of people, at least when I'm driving. So, say hundreds of people when I'm just hanging out in a certain area that are going about living their lives naturally, normally, as this is still the reality we live in, that things are going to continue the way they are. And I'm just kind of like confused. If the world outside right now is having so much trauma, why are more people not seeing it? I kind of reflect and look upon that perhaps I'm anchoring the realities in the areas that I'm existing in. And perhaps there's other people all around the world like me, for instance, the United News Network community and the community of Carrie Kay and the community of other people as well. Kevin Trudeau's maybe portion of his community as well, that they're anchoring the light, the love, the high vibration that they are. And perhaps that's what's holding this world together. Actually, that's what Carrie Kay about in her most recent video, discussing how the higher vibration are the ones that are anchoring us and preventing us perhaps from experiencing this cataclysm that has been prophesized for such a long time. Like the Bible talks about, for example, Revelations and, Armageddon, all that lovely stuff. And yet I truly believe that we've moved past that possibility. That, yes, at one point in time it was a possibility, but, you know, all of that belief in the potential of that happening has possibly been made mute, irrelevant, because that's kind of how I see our reality. Is our reality is a compost of everyone else's collective agreement, or subconscious agreements on how things are meant to be perceived. And so where I'm going is to a world where I would prefer to go anyways, where we all collectively agree that our world is far better than we're allowing it to be right now. You know, yeah, I don't know. I feel that that's kind of a rant, but I think that this podcast, in particular one in majority, is more of a rant because, I keep putting out information that perhaps would be assistance. It's more of an assistance to me, actually, because as I'm able to verbalize what I'm thinking, I get a better understanding of, the thoughts that I have myself. And this helps me maybe even sift through what's important and what's not important. And what's important for me as, a human being, a Homo sapien, is that I live, that I thrive, but yet also that those around me who I love and care for, that they thrive as well. And that we can together build a better world. And when I mean those people that I care for, I honestly care for every single person that I walk by, whoever they are, whether they're a person that's down on their luck, whether they're an attractive, beautiful woman, whether they're a gay couple of whether men or women, or they're a man who's stuck in business mode, or a woman who's stuck in, working overtime over and over again, or foreigners who have come to Canada hoping for a better life, yet now they're working 3 jobs just to support their family here and their family back home. I care for the birds and the trees equally to all of those people. Like, I truly do love and feel connected to the entire world. And maybe that's all about where I'm at right now, going right to the edge of the pirate's plank and peeking over and almost, like having a sword to my back with my arms up in the air waving in order to maintain the little bit of balance and semblance that I have of my own life. And yet every moment I'm considering how to perhaps move forward, perhaps what to do as a new podcast or whatever it is to support the way that I would prefer to live. And that I would love to be an example of, should anyone else choose to live a different way of life, whether it's van life or nomadic life, or, they just want to live off the grid. Not necessarily fully off the grid. I know a lot of people who want to live off grid. They're still using solar panels and satellite dishes. They just want to be away from the majority of other people. But yet, to be an example for people living in villages all around the world, And I want to travel to those villages all around the world. And I want to see more of the world. But yet, even with this road trip that I'll call it that I'm taking right now, I find myself limited by, currency, incoming currency. I was reading my book by Paul Selig the other night, and it's basically told me to go away, go for a walk, and think about what's the thing that's limiting you. And immediately it comes to my mind, well, essentially it's currency. See, I was on my way further up north of my own province after I got on this road trip, but realizing that every single campsite that I was going to wanted $25 to $35 a night for me to put my tent in an area, which, yes, it's nice that there is an occasional ranger who comes by to sell firewood, but yet, I didn't necessarily count on that. The amount that even camping has turned into a big business for people. Like there was this one campsite that I stayed in that had 86 campsites, and I'm imagining if you're charging $25 for 86 campsites, even if you have two park rangers, someone's making a ton of money off of that. And so I suddenly realized the amount of money that I had secured in order to commit myself to this initial trip wasn't going to work out. And so I had to backtrack. And then I find myself still in the Fraser Valley where I would rather be out on the road with my son, my turtles, with other people, going from place to place, sometimes staying in a hotel, motel, or even in a campsite on grid or off grid, wherever it is. But yet I still find myself in a world that has been completely controlled by money. There, even in our world, I had one opportunity to eat these fresh raspberries from a tree, but even in most of the other parts of the world, there isn't really even any food that's growing out in nature right now. And so my legs are falling asleep as I'm kneel down underneath this bridge right now. And so, yeah, where I'm going is the place that I myself would love to be with people that are resident with me. But to get there, I recognize that first we find connections. And when I walk around my physical world right now, even if it's in campsites, people are going to campsites and they're drinking and having essentially large parties. Finding campsites for them is a way to relieve that stress of the week that they have been in. And then there's a lot of older couples, which I find wonderful that, they were able to get that motor home and, finally get to that dream that they've always perhaps had. I remember before my mother passed, she would always talk about wanting to rent or to buy an RV and then just go traveling from place to place. And I've had the opportunity to see many lovely couples that are doing just exactly that. And so, there are people that are living a nomadic life already. It's just they had to wait until they got to a place of retirement where they're now too tired to do anything other than play dominoes outside of their RV in the campsite. And I feel that there are so many possibilities of, amazing hikes and connections with nature that I myself would love to go. However, there comes another limitation again, because I have two pairs of shoes, and this is a little personal story. They both have holes in them. One of them looks kind of nice, and the other ones I actually kind of like scruffed up and even maybe ripped up a little bit as I was hiking across that Hope Slide, that large avalanche that I have as my videos. I showed one of them in a video that I did for moving portraits, but I was able to run almost and hike across this large avalanche field of rocks that were all jagged and, different in their, well, they're kind of like what you see down here, like this type, but they were a lot larger than that. Touch the water to see if it's real. Don't ignore. I'm not ignoring you if you are still, oh, you're not still here anymore. But nonetheless, um, As always, I'll say to people that are concerned about if it's real or not, I don't know how I would touch the water though if I'm like this far away. Like this is pretty far away. So, anyways, back to what I was saying is, yeah, so even with that, this whole monetary system that I find myself continues to limit me because now I don't even necessarily have shoes that are proper for going on large hikes. And that's part of the reason why I came out here is to perhaps even share these with you. But yet, the systems or the access that I have created in order to keep myself available for creating this content still require monetary solutions. And so I created Patreon, and I keep encouraging people as Patreon can be joined for absolutely free. See, the community that I'm building in Patreon isn't about money per se. Yes, I have the dream of what if 1 million people, chose to give a dollar a piece? What type of stuff could I do with that for myself as well as for everyone that I pass by? Not everyone, but the people that I'm guided to, perhaps. And so, with that being said, the Patreon, even though I've made offerings, there's 2 videos. There's one video on there that if you'd like to, you can download. I've made it available for purchase. There's also the first script or the first episode of my original TV series that my partner Jim and we wrote together. That right there is well worth the asking and definitely worth my offering it. And should that produce more, I was actually planning on putting up the other episodes, and they're fully developed episodes that can be read and appreciated literally. And I've even created, the funnel of PayPal that people anywhere around the world could send money to PayPal. Now, see, I'm not looking at this as, begging. It's more of me talking to myself of what else could I do? I've created offerings. I've created, a community. I have the ability to, of course, once we get, I think I need another 2,000 hours of view time on YouTube. Even that, someone could simply just run all my videos or go to my playlist of Sean's Thoughts podcast and just absolutely run all 170 or almost 200 videos, just play them all. Let them just play one after the other, and you can just do that and walk away. See, I find it really hard to understand how with 13,000 subscribers that I supposedly have, how I'm still stuck behind the first step of YouTube's, pay for the creator stuff. That I have to have 3,000 hours of view time in order to even have any access to the ads that are being run on my videos. And then I need another 1,000 hours just to get, any sort of super buy or whatever it is. So with that being said, I want to acknowledge the fact that after 1,000 hours of content creation that I've put into YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Audible, Amazon, after over 1,000 hours, I have yet to earn a single cent. And yet I've spent thousands of dollars of my own personal money so that I could create this content. And this content is more than just me talking. It's a lot more than that. It's the photography, the videography, the art, the thoughts, the expressions, the meditations, the beautiful moments of even what we're watching right now. It's all that sharing, because as the Care Bear said, sharing is caring. And I truly did, and I truly have built my life on the fundamentals, funny enough, of the Care Bears and Optimus Prime and He-Man. Actually, I had the amazing opportunity to go back to, the lower mainland down to where I was living previously. And I had the opportunity to watch Masters of the Universe, which perhaps I'll do a podcast on that coming in the future, because there's a lot of amazing stories and inspirations within some of these older movies, these older essentially franchises that I had pursued and that I grew up. Like I learned a lot from Scooby Doo, and I can essentially relate life to Scooby Doo. But if you haven't seen my Transformers 1 talk, I highly encourage you to go and view that. I'm going to look at right now at, so remember at around 31 minutes is where I will be posting that, because that was a divine spark of an idea that I had when I first watched that movie. And so I did a whole entire podcast essentially relating all of the ideas within that movie and how they related to my life. And of course, you as the audience, of how they relate to you. And so, with that all being said, I've created this whole, as I often get put on or comes up as my podcast universe. I now have 11 series that I'm working on, and I wish to create even more. And I would love to co-create and collaborate with people as well. And yet, I'm confused by the lack of engagement with my content, with anything that I create. And so in this episode right now, I'm really asking why. I once had someone comment in a post or a video that I had done that I needed to stop. And this was the person's opinion. I needed to stop just basically talking about what I had heard about from other people talking about. And yet I've never really shared, except for last night's podcast, which I'm going to link at the end of this one, because it really does paint a really great picture. And quite honestly, I'm done worrying about what I talk about. I actually recently recorded a after hours podcast where I talked about the benefits of my terpene research that I had done for over 2 years. And even that information right there could perhaps send thousands of people on a journey of healing. And so all of this stuff that I am sharing, yes, I'm trying to, or not trying to, I'm doing to create it so that I can fund my exploration, but also my sharing of what I explore and what I discover. Yet, honestly, I can't do that without support from those who are watching. And I do have a couple people supporting me, and I truly, truly do appreciate every molecular, micro, quanta, like molecule of those beings. And if you have supported me in any way, from previously watching and liking the videos all the way up to supporting me on Patreon, or, just offering, here's what I can do at this moment in time, I thank you so much. And yet I encourage you, that person who has remained in the shadows, whether it's, hidden or it's just cautious about even coming out of the shadows, I encourage you to get out of the shadows and join me on Patreon. It's free. If you want to support, I'd appreciate that as well. But I quite honestly can't really comprehend, unless there is a considerable amount of, digital manipulation on my current reality, as to the reason why there aren't thousands of people. There should be thousands of people already on Patreon. There should be hundreds of thousands of views on all of my YouTube videos. See, I have 13,000 subscribers, so there should be at least a couple thousand on every video that I do. So I once again call to any and all forces that are essentially either manipulating or affecting my videos in a malicious type of way to step back and get the hell out of here. Go off and find your own paradise, Eden, or whatever it is, or go look for your own Armageddon, and allow the rest of us, those who resonate with me, because I know that there are so many of you who are looking to spend a day by the river and not have to worry about what bills need to be paid, what things you need to do, what errands you need to run, and what on the news and all of that lovely stuff. And part of essentially healing on anyone's journey will be essentially to relax and let go of all that crap that really doesn't matter and that I'm already let go of. And so, with that being said, the one thing that is limiting me from going to where I want to go, and whether or not this is part of me participating, I truly do still believe that there is a little bit of something that's holding on. And I don't necessarily mean that to do with me. It's whatever it is that wants to release. Alabar actually said that at one point in time, the average human had many demons or negative energies attached to them. And that he believes now, at least in his own experience, that most people now, it's no more than two. And that there are actually some people out there who have completely broken free, perhaps, but yet maybe they're held back only by what they've known to always be, and therefore due to that they're continuing to recreate. But perhaps just doing something that you would never imagined doing before is enough to break free of that. And so joining me on Patreon, whether it's free, whether you're doing the founder tier, or if you are that person that's sitting on a crazy amount of money and you don't know what to do with it, well, how about you come fund me and together we will see what we can do with it. Even the tier that I put up for $11,000, I guarantee there's people around here that are sitting on even more than that, looking at the world around them and uncertain about what they could do, but yet perhaps you could allow me to find something to do with that money. Yes, there are certain things in my life that I want. For instance, I do require a new vehicle. And I would love to have a new vehicle, a vehicle that's ability to drive long distances, for example, and pull trailers and pull whatever it is that I need to pull and to carry a lot of different people going in the same direction. I have ideas and stuff like that, yet in the far aspect of it, there's still so much else that I would love to do. So, whether this is a clarion call for us to get off the fence and jump into the game, or just to simply knock all of those obstacles that are limiting me, whether I created them or they are those demons or artificial intelligences or even YouTube themselves or whoever it is that's controlling YouTube right now. Step away and let's go forward. If you listen to the GIA reports, we are so close to starting an organization, or not necessarily starting, but rolling out an organization called CARE, which is a center for the amity and the restoration of Earth, as well as there's other organizations such as the Earth Guard that are being worked on and created in order to make a better world for our children and our children's children, and even for ourselves, as perhaps something called the quickening is coming to an end. And we are essentially regaining the beings that we are and have always been, realigning to that true self, as Paul Selig often refers to, or the divine self, the Christed self that we all are. And that maybe even that being that came to our planet 2,000 years ago tried to express and seed the idea that we were all of God. So anyways, there's a lot of things that I would love to do, yet, of course, it requires support. And the place that I'm going is the place that you are, that we are together in a future version of ourselves, perhaps. And the place that I am right now is beside this river, which I've spent so many days camping in an off-grid camping site, and then going to a Starbucks where I would upload videos in order to share everything that it is that I'm learning, experiencing, and witnessing. So perhaps you'd love to come with me, whether in spirit or in form, or, just with sharing your ability to share. So thank you so much for sharing your time and attention with me. And if, financially, for instance, you're unable to do any of what I've just said, You know, maybe you don't have the access to Patreon for some reason. You can like every video as well as share every video. And if you're on YouTube, as I said, go to my playlist. You'll see it in the description, Sean's Thoughts Podcast, and allow every video to play, because even if I could get a few of my listeners from the 13,000 subscribers that are there, perhaps, to play every single video and like every single video, that's the minimum that that would perhaps catapult my podcast and my efforts forward to be an example, or just to essentially break more free than I already have. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, or whatever, drop them in the comments. I would really love to know who you are, what you're thinking. I'd love to know the people that are listening, but more importantly, I'd love to build that community that I'm dreaming of. So thank you so much. And I trust that, God will guide, Source will guide all of those who benefit from what I'm saying and what I'm doing, so that we together can create and reveal the new earth, which is right in front of us right now in this video. A world of, rivers running as they should forward and just flowing. So thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you to the 2 people who already liked this video. Thank you to the several people who wrote comments on this video. And thank you for nature for being there to support me, and for the trees to offer me shade, the water of the lakes and the rivers to offer me hydration, and, well, Starbucks for being there to offer me the ability to upload the videos that I am creating. So thank you so much. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and so much love.